Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. All right, today we're going to be investigating the Luwian religion. Uh, but before we do that, we have to first understand exactly who were the Luwians, since their culture and general civilization is, I have to say, is often ignored in popular culture and even by academia. I'm always upset when I look through a world civilization A textbook and they skip the Luwians. They're not even there. They don't even exist. And the sad thing is that even good or so-called good academic works on the ancient world, uh, they kind of subsume them under the Hittites as if they're the same. And like maybe a bad little brother, so to speak. And I'm thinking, well, that's not fair. They have their own special identity. Just because they happen to be near by doesn't mean that they are the same as the Hittites. So, yes, the Luwians are associated with the Hittites, and they are both Indo-European. And they arrived from the north into Anatolia together. And the Hittites, they settled around the central plateau, while the Luwians, they dominated the western and southern coastal regions of Anatolia, which is, of course, today Turkey. Now, it may intrigue you that one of the main homelands of the Luwians, according to the Luwians, so I'm going to, was the city of Troy. Yeah, you got that. Troy. Yes. And so the Luwians were the Trojans in the Iliad story. Now you become intrigued, right? The Luwians had many kingdoms and states, and sometimes they even had various leagues. In fact, first, the Luwians had something called the Arzawa League, and then a league that was created by the powerful state of Arzawa. The Hittites often opposed them, and so the Luwians and oftentimes were treated like second-class citizens. In response, the Luwians allied themselves first with the Minoans, you may have heard of them, then the Mycenaeans, and even the Egyptians at one point. The Luwians, at least a portion of them, do eventually become, or should join in with Sea Peoples during the late Bronze Age, turning against and destroying the Hittite Empire. But the Luwians continued on into the Iron Age, despite the so-called fall of Troy, with their culture, religion being part of the background of ancient Lydia, ancient Caria, ancient Lycia, ancient Pamphylia, and ancient Cilicia. And they survived right into the Hellenistic and Roman periods as part of the mixed population of Anatolia, and of course, during the Greek and Roman era, this area is known as Asia Minor. As for the religion, it will have many affinities with the Hittites and will share some of the same gods. But the Luwians will also blend their beliefs with the early Hurrians, as well as other ancient Anatolian beliefs that go even further back. And while the Hittites may not have always respected the Luwians, they most certainly respected their beliefs, and in fact believed especially that their magic and rituals were so powerful that they often adopted them for themselves, especially the magical principles centered around Arzawa, with its capital known as Aspasis, which would later become known as Ephesus. And so the Hittites preserved many Luwian magical texts. So we have much about we know much about the Luwian religion from the Luwians themselves as well. And so there will be much to be talked about tonight. So let's give a little outline of Luwian religion, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the background history of Luwians. But I just kind of want to give you a teaser what to look for. The Luwian religion dominated much of western and southern Anatolia along the coastline from 2300 or 23 right, BCE, all the way into the Iron Age with their contemporaries, including the Hittites, the Minoans, and the Mycenaeans. Most people today, including scholars, know very little about the Luwians, and especially their beliefs. This is not because there is no evidence for their beliefs. In fact, numerous texts survive articulating exactly their beliefs. In fact, I'm going to go right there and go to them towards the latter half of this lecture. We're going to go read them for ourselves. Woo-hoo, right? But the problem is not because of a lack of materials, it's the fact of a lack of interest, the lack of knowledge. And there's so few people who take the time to truly explore their religion. Now, the Luwians have the following characteristics. First of all, Luwian religion. Luwian religion has the following characteristics. First, while it is true that the Luwians certainly have their share of male gods, an interesting aspect of Luwian religion is that sometimes these gods, these very same gods, have a female counterpart in aspect, so that this god could also be a goddess at the same time. So that's interesting. We find the same phenomena amongst the Mycenaeans, for example, as evidenced through linear bead texts. Number two, Luwian magic is very preoccupied by what I like to call threshold magic, with various doors and portals and even windows. They're fascinated with doors and windows, described in their text as viewed as places for magical transformation. And in a sense, they are epiphany gateways. These doorways were sometimes temporary gates made out of reeds, but in other cases were quite permanent, carved directly on the side of a mountain, where they can still be found throughout Turkey today. Third, rituals often involve scapegoats or exchanging the negative energy within oneself or the community upon an animal or animals, with this substitution resolving the issue. Fourth, Luwian magic is often connected with female practitioners holding a variety of official and unofficial positions, from private practitioners, including one who wrote many magical texts known as the Old Woman. I mean, she just calls herself the Old Woman, to various priestesses of the temples. In short, Luwian religion recognizes female positions of power as equal to that of men, and so not as patriarchally restrictive as the Hittites. Fifth, while men and women were both equally empowered in a cultic capacity, the Luwians still emphasized gender differences, and that men and women were to be treated differently when it comes to the prescribed sacrifices or the ritual tools based upon their gender differences. For example, for a man, a male animal would be offered up, but for a woman, a female animal would be sacrificed. So there's that kind of connection. Sixth, Luwian religion has a diverse amount of elementals and daemon or demon spirits, often categorized into groups, which later we call the famous Idaean dactyls. Seven, Luwian religion was also far more ecstatic than the Hittites, recalling the Minoans. And this feature would eventually feed in later into the cult of Kybele. So more of an ecstatic aspect. They're living along the coast there, right? Eight, Luwians believed in the transformation of people, animals, and objects through purification rituals into something that is sacred and holy. For only through these rituals can one approach the gods and the goddesses. And so, for example, the bread offerings go through a ritual to become holy in the eyes of the god and the goddess. And the wine becomes holy through the same process. They go through this Amazing kind of transformation, the bread and the wine. That sounds kind of interesting. Moving right along, after these rituals, uh, which transfers the energy of the god and goddess into the bread or the wine, or even the beer at times, right? The practitioner is then to literally eat and drink in the god and goddess, gaining their essence within them so as to be blessed and to achieve the needed task requested during the ritual. An example of this occurring was during, for example, the Huasana Goddess Festival, to name just one example. Ninth, the Luwian rituals involve lots of spitting, lots of spitting, especially in connection to either causing or alleviating curses. There's even what's called the spitting and waving of the piglet ritual that comes to mind. 10, the final one. Some of the gods and goddesses we attribute to the Greeks are actually Luwian. That's right, in origin. And you'll be surprised, inclusive of Apollo and Cybele. But even Artemis and Leto are influenced by Luwian beliefs as well. So, of course, I'm going to have a fun extra one, right? So, the fun extra one, number 11, why not? Is that the Luwians, um, they they worship a god by the name of Santa, but the Santa's evil. So we'll talk about that later. One other thing. Luwian rituals often also include the sacred kiss. That's really big amongst them. And there is a little bit, well, quite a bit actually, of orgastic kinds of interactions. So intimacy magic that's involved. Well, there we go. How's that? Kind of have a nice overview of what this belief system's about. Now, where do they come from? Many scholars believe the Dermachik culture. So it's Demirchiyuk. This culture was the beginning of the arrival of the Indo-Europeans in Europe. Sorry, Anatolia, excuse me. They were this culture, the civilization kind of thrived between 3,500 BCE to 2,500 BC. So it marked the beginning of the arrival of these Indo-Europeans. What's important about this is that the Luwians then moved around 2,350 BCE. They moved to the area of what is now Troy. And this is where they center their culture for a period of time. So those who spoke Luwian began to spread from the area of Troy throughout Anatolia. And how we trace this is through their pottery. The Luwians make a particular kind of pottery that's known as red slip pottery, and we can watch them as they migrate along the coast. In fact, what's interesting is while the Hittites, they dominate the plateau, the Luwians, what they do is they dominate the coastlines of Anatolia. So whether it be the western coastline or the southern coastline. What I find is fascinating is aren't the coastal regions the cool place to be? I mean, that's where the beach is, right? And of course, you have all the rivers going into the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean, and oh yeah. So I mean, it really is great for trade and other things besides that. So, but yes, we know that the Luwians were already a distinct group in northwestern Anatolia. And were a major part of the population of Troy too, between 2,600 BCE to 2,250 BC. We know that already they're taking over. They are the Trojans. The Luwians did view Troy as their homeland and where they originally came from. This is even mentioned on one occasion on the Luwian calendar. known as the Festival of Istanua, which is held in a place known as Sun City. And both the Luwians and Hittites will gather here. Accordingly, during this festival, many thunder songs were sung. And the song of Istunawa, which is the big one, the big theme song, begins with a line, Aha, ata ta'alata oyenta walusata, which means when they came from high Walusa. You're going, well, wait, Dr. Rethel, Walusa. I think you'll see it when they came from high Troy. What's Walusa? Okay, here we go. We're doing dance now. Okay, so Walusa is Troy. Troy is Walusa. What happened in Luwian, as well as in Mycenaean, is they used to have the W sound. You have the wah. And so it was Walusa. What happened is that after the end of the Bronze Age, going into the Iron Age, in Greek, the w is lost. The W sound is lost, and it becomes Ilusa. Ilusa. Got it? And so the city becomes known as, from Walusa, it becomes known as Ilusa. You're going, okay, so it's called Troy. Well, it's interesting because the region in which, the specific region around which Walusa and then Ilusa controlled was the area known as the Troyos, which of course becomes known as the Troad. so there it is. And you're going, still, I'm not connecting. Well, then amongst the Greeks and the Romans, it goes to it was Walusa to Ilusa to Ilium. That's where you get the title, the Iliad. And the area controlled was the Troyos, and that becomes known as Troy. So you got kind of confused. What happened is eventually the city of Troy, or I should say the region of Troy, becomes connected to the city that was the main principal city of that region. And then we lose the word Ilium. Are you guys following that? So now let's go back to that text. So when it reads as follows, it goes, when they came from high Walusa, this is the beginning, this is the origin story of the Luwians, and it's coming right from the region of Troy. Of course, there's other evidence too beyond the song, and that is archaeology. Hello, the red slipware, remember, and the kinds of materials that they make. Their settlement patterns, not just the pottery, but other ways of the way they bury their dead, everything else. So we put these all together, and we can trace them as they migrate and they move around. But it looks like they were at Troy. So that means that Troy or Walusa will be referenced a lot. What? Yeah, referenced a lot in their history. But we had the Iliad, and we had Greek stories, and I mean, there's more. But we will go. That's another talk. But yeah, but there you have it. Now, moving right along. So of course, I do want to mention that King Priam, the main Priam of Troy. I want to mention that that there is the word Priam in Luwian, primua, means exceptionally courageous. So he's king courageous. King courageous of Troy. Okay. Now, according to the Hittite code, the majority of the areas where the Luwian speaking peoples lived was called Luwia. So they called the region Luwia. This is the area, as I mentioned before, Western Anatolia and Southern Anatolia. Like for so many other Indo-European languages, they have two numbers, singular and plural, and three persons are distinguished in their language. Luwian not only became the dominant language of Troy, but what's known as the Siha River land, which of course is the Greek Hermos and Caicos Valley, and as well as around the Meander River Valley, so the Meander area where it meanders around, right? And in most of Western Anatolia, they all spoke Luwian. They didn't necessarily speak Hittite. The Hittites, the plateau, center area of Anatolia. Okay. Now, what will happen is they will then form a political league, and we have references to it. Now, in Minoan, I know you're going, linear A, Minoan? We haven't, oh, yeah, we can read certain words. That's because Minoan includes Luwian loanwords that we can decipher. Woohoo! Okay. And we know that the Minoans believe this area was known as Arzawa. Arzawa. And according to linear A documents. And so the Hittites know this area as Luwian, but the Minoans know it as Arzawa. Well, then, of course, we have Mycenaean, which, of course, these are the Greeks, in linear B tablets, and it is known as Arzawa. Arzawa. And some, well, actually, so Arzawa in the linear B text from Mycenaean, it's known as Arzawa in Pylos, and at Knossos is known as Asiatia. But you're going, so Dr. Riefel, I don't want to hear all these Is this significant? Yeah, you're going to have another aha moment. Oh, okay. Well, listen then. Okay, so you're going, Asuya. Does that sound familiar? Asuya. Asiwoya. And of course, it'll become known as the Arzawa League. And later on, this word will be Asia. 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 That's right. What? You mean the Luwians? The Luwians, the name of their earlier area, territory, gives the name to not only Asia Minor, which of course is connected to Turkey, but the entire continent. Going all the way to China and Japan and Korea. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you for taking us through the language. This is worth it now. Yeah, you're probably going to go through the video and go, let's go backwards again. I want to catch that. Throw off your friends like, hey, guess what? I know where the word Asia comes from. There it is. So it is a combination. It's a word that is agreed upon by the Minoans, the Mycenaeans, as well as the Luwians, as well as the Hittites. There it is. Now, according to the Hittite records, the Trojans were the first associated with this Arzawa League. They were the first, which eventually had 22 members, including the Luca, the Warusa, the Tarusa, and the Karya. But then, of course, there's quite a few others. We won't go through it all, but you get the idea. Now, the Luca, they were a Luwian people, and eventually, of course, they will become split into two groups known as the Lycians and the Lydians, and those are popular areas during the Greek and Roman period of time. Okay, as for the exact region of Arzawa, it was inclusive of much of northwestern Anatolia, including what is called Lydia, just below, but including the Troad, and north of the state of Arzawa. Okay, the area about Izmir today was the very center of this league. During the old Hittite kingdom, Hattusilus the first, who reigned from 1586 to 1556, claims to have extended the Hittite domain to the sea, and in the second year to have subdued Alaska and other cities of Syria. In the third year, he campaigned, according to Hittite records, in the area of Arzawa and Arzawa in Western Anatolia. Now, we know that in their struggle against the Hittites, that those called there's another name, here it is, the Ahiyawa. The Ahiyawa. You're going, who are the Ahiyawa? those are the Mycenaeans. The Ahiyawa, the Mycenaeans, the Greeks, the ones that are connected to, fighting against the Trojans. At this early period of time, during the time of the end of the Minoans and the rise of the Mycenaeans, they were actually at first allies with the Arzawa League. Yeah, they were. And at least by 1400 BCE, if not earlier, providing them support against who? Against those Hittites. I mean, I feel sorry. The Arzawa League, basically, you have the Ahiyawa, on one side, who are the Mycenaeans. They're occupying the coastal regions. They're occupying the islands there, and of course, obviously, going into the Greece itself. And then on the other side, you got the Hittites, and they're kind of sandwiched in between, but they're still hugging the coast. And so they have to decide between: are we going to ally ourselves with the Hittites today, or are we going to ally ourselves with the Ahiyawa, who are the Mycenaeans today? And so, early on, at a certain point, they said, let's go for the Mycenaeans. We don't like the Hittites. So we know, according to Hittite records, that these are the Mycenaeans. They're Ahiyawa. They're the same. In fact, as many as 25 Hittite texts refer to the Ahiyawa, starting, we won't go through all the dates there, but eventually the Hittites under King Tulahiya, 1360 to 1344, he eventually defeated the Arzawa League. So around 1350, the Arzawa League, this league that connected all these cities together, connected Luwians, it is subdued, and so what happens is he conquers these various states, breaks them all up. Arzawa is there, Hapala, and a place called Sihel Riverland. During this Hittite victory against the Arzawa League, it was so devastating that Tulahiya, this Hittite king, brings back 10,000 captive Arzawan soldiers back to his capital of Hattusas, along with 600 teams of horses, oxen, and sheep, and so forth, including also the former king, Payakal, and his son, Kukuli. And so Arzawa is shattered. So you're thinking, so that's the end of them. No. At the time of the fall of the Arzawa League, around 1360, the Ahiyawa, or the Mycenaeans, were still principally located in mainland Greece, in Mycenae and the islands of the Aegean. But now what's going to happen is that now the Arzawa League of the Luwians have fallen, these Mycenaeans, these Greeks go, hey, you know what we can do? And start to invade and colonize the coastal regions of Anatolia. And you're going, wait a second, I thought, the Trojan War, there looks like it's the first time they're stepping out there and attacking Troy. No, they're already there. They're already colonizing these areas, just like the Minoans beforehand. Got it? And so now what will happen is another state that was connected to this league at times, but was semi-independent. It rises up and becomes the next big bet. It's the next big power. And we will talk about this one, and that is the Arzawa. Okay, so the Arzawa state, it did exist, contemporaneous to the Arzawa League. So it's kind of semi-independent. They are Luwians at the same time. Their particular area was centered around Aspasos, which is, of course, the city of Ephesus, around the Kestros Valley. And so they rise up. Now this Arzawa exists around 1700 BCE, and even earlier too. And they had relationships with the Minoans as well as the Mycenaeans, and they had relationships with the Hittites too. So they kind of played it off back and forth. In some cases, sometimes they were a Hittite vassal state. Now, what will happen is that Arzawa, while temporarily conquered, will start to rise up again. And and so what will happen is that the Arzawa League will go ahead and ally themselves with Egypt. So the Pharaoh Amenhotep III, 1391 to 1353, we realize that there's an alliance here between them. Okay, so in fact, there's going to be a marriage that is going to occur between them to kind of submit the details. And we have that record. I have it right here, but I don't have time to read it because I want to get a little bit more to the religion. But we're kind of doing this overview. So, but there you have it. Around 1320, Arzawa then forms an anti-Hittite league and starts to, including a place known as Milawanta, which is ancient Miletus, which is along the coast, where, of course, the Ahiiwa or the Mycenaeans had their foot. Okay, and yes, Troy is all part of this conversation. Again, I want to talk about Troy, but that's another talk. So this civilization, here we go. Now we're kind of set the scene. This civilization will go through fits and starts, but it will survive at times into the 1200s BCE. And after the Sea Peoples, aspects of it will continue on into the Iron Age. But here's where it gets so important. We have discovered that along this coastal region, there is as many as 340 large city-like sites that have dotted the region that we have seen from an analysis from outer space. What? Yes, it's mind-boggling. Wait, you're saying there's 340 large city-like sites connected to the Luwians, most of which are not excavated, along the coast of Anatolia, along the coast of Turkey. And yes, when they have done excavations, they have found records. We have an entire civilization to unpack. Entire civilization. Now, where do we go from here? You get the idea. Well, again, I would love to talk about the particulars of Luwian civilization and all the ins and outs, as well as sometimes they have an alliance. The Trojans kind of become separate for a period of time. Sometimes they ally themselves with the Hittites. Sometimes they ally themselves with the Mycenaeans, and sometimes they ally themselves with the League. It kind of goes back and forth. I do want to mention that we have records of the kings of Troy. We know who they are from Hittite records, including a certain Alascandus, which is, of course, Alexander, from various records and so forth. But let's go in to the religion. Let's go into the beliefs of these peoples. I'm kind of moving on from there. Ready, begin. Okay. So many aspects of Luwian or Luwian religion. Sometimes I say Luwian because it's the German part of me pronouncing W's as V's, but it is supposed to be Luwian. But you'll see me say Luwian every now and then because of that little slip there. But many aspects of Luwian religion are continue on amongst those going into the Hellenistic age, the Greeks, the Hellenistic age, and the Romans. So it's interesting because the Luwians don't simply go away. So not only do we have Hittite records of the Luwians, but we will have records of the Luwians that are contemporaneous because there's still the people haven't gone away during the Greek era during the period of Rome as well. So I want to mention that too. Now, as far as beliefs are concerned, the Luwians had a very mixed pantheon that included Indo-European, Hittite, and Hurrian deities, as well as many others from the Near East. As we know, from what's called the Anita text. Both Luwians and Hittites define a separation between what they called our Sus Sumus, or our gods, and the Sus Smiths, or the gods of others. So there's a definition between our gods and the gods of others. Now, the Luwian word for God is Masana, although in some cases they will say Mashana. Okay, and so it's Mashana for a god. When it comes to a goddess, is Mashani or Mashanai. Okay, so a temple is called a Hayani. A statue or image is called a Darush. A female priestess is called a Damaranza. And to bind somebody is known as Hishaya. According to Luwians, foreigners were not allowed to enter Luwian temples. That's the same thing with the Hittites. In fact, there's one declaration that asserts, quote, a Luwian declaration: if a guest comes to anyone, if he, the host, in order to go up to the temple, normally crosses the threshold of the gods or the king, that one, the host, may take him up. He may eat or drink, if, however, he is a foreigner. If he is not a native of Hattusas and he approach the gods, he will die. Okay, so there it is. So foreigners are not allowed on pain of, well, death to enter into the whether a Hittite or Luwian temple. The Luwians worship many great mother goddesses. One of the big ones is known as Asasara. Asasara is oftentimes known as the Madonna of the Luwians. Asasara is related to Demeter. Now, the designation Asasara or Ashashara is found in even connected to linear Minoan. We see this on libation tables, on sacrificial missals, on one statue, even a silver pin. It's used at least 16 times in Minoan texts, but it's also used by the Luwians. So it's interesting. That means that the Minoans and the Luwians are sharing in this deity. In fact, we also know that there seems to be a connection between the word de ma te, which will become Demeter as well. Now we have only 1,400 Minoan inscribed clay tablets, but and so far revealing 78 hieroglyphic signs forming 125 words. But the good news is that many of these Minoan hieroglyphic signs, actually 15 of them, and 45 of these words can be read because they have a Luwian counterpart. That's great. So we know that the Minoans and Luwians are working together, are trading together, under the Asua League. So we kind of learn more about the Minoans as a result, because we can't read a lot of the ancient Minoans. So there you have it. And we also know that this particular deity connects with the mother, and it's fascinating because Da Mater is or Da Mata does have a connection with an Indo-European root. And since the Minoans are not Indo-Europeans, but the Luwians are, it seems to be a loan word from the Luwians. Of course, Da, or Da, becomes, of course, Da, right? So Da becomes Ga. And that means, of course, it becomes Gaia, which is earth. And Ma, well, we know what this word is, becomes, of course, Ma or Te becomes Mater. And so it's Ba Mater, which means earth mother. Right. And so we have this connection there. So this earth mother seems to be worshipped by the Luwians as well as the Minoans. And this will, of course, slip into part of the Mycenaeans as well. So kind of a fun little story there, right? So now the name Asasara or Ashasara is interesting because Ashasara means lady. Ashasara means lady. In fact, you say Ashasaras, that means lady. If you say Ashasara Miss, Ashasara Miss, Ashasara Miss, that means my lady. Ashasara Miss. I keep saying that. Ashasara Miss. Ashamaris. Artemis. Oh, oops, what did I just do? I do, right? Oh no. Yeah, you're learning things. Remember, Artemis doesn't have any Greek roots. They always make up ones. And Artemis is indigenous to Anatolia. You mean Artemis and Apollo comes from, yeah, it's shaking you up, isn't it? You can see it now, right? Ashashadamis, my lady. Artemis, my lady. And she's called my lady. Yeah, yeah. And this tradition goes right into the Ephesian inscriptions all the way into the Roman period. And she's known as Our Lady of Ephesus. Whoa, mind blown. Boom, right? Oh, let's just keep on going. Okay, so Ashasar. Now there's another. So you have this my lady virgin. No, you do have another mother goddess, but it's a little secret. It's not simply a mother goddess. It needs to be an earlier one. And I'm going to tell you the name, and you're going to have another aha moment as when it comes to connections. I love this. So the name of this mother goddess is known as Hana, right? So it's known as Hana, 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 also known as Hana, Ha, ha, ha. I'm actually saying it, yeah. Hana, Hana. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's interesting. So what does Hana mean? Hana means grandmother. Come on. So you have a grandmother goddess, and then you have a mother goddess. I love it. I mean, come on. I mean, leave it to the Luwians to have a grandmother goddess. I think it's time that we had one. So there you have it. So because she's the older one, and so she's got to be grandma. That's how they're figuring things out, right? Is this fascinating, right? So, okay, so you got the lady and you got grandma, right? Not always necessarily connected. What will happen is, I won't go into this because this is another talk, but this lady aspect sometimes becomes also connected to a maiden aspect. And so in some cases, it will be attributed to Athena, which will become understood as Athena, or it will be maiden as in core, maiden, and it'll also be understood as Persephone. So these things split up, and then they'll make associations with Hana Hana or Hana Hana, the grandmother, with Leto and having Artemis and Apollo. You get the point. So all these kind of all mixed together, but don't do that. Just understand you got a grandma and you got the lady. Okay, so we move on. So this grandma, she was also known as Hippat or Kippat, and she was known as the mother of all living things, or the grandmother of all living things. And she will be understood in many contexts as being married to the Hurrian, which is an earlier group in Anatolia, a Hurrian storm god by the name of Tishub. We hear this name again, Tishub. Also, Tishub is known as Tarhun or Tarhunzas. So Tishub or Tarhum or Tarhunzas, and this is, of course, this is known by the Luwians as Tarhun or Tarhunzas, and by the Hittites known as Tishub. And so this is, of course, the great storm god, rain god, father god figure. Okay, so there it is. So they're connected. Now it's interesting because an aspect of Hana Hana connected to this Hippat, uh, uh, there's a story here, is Hippat is believed to be a deification of a certain Kububa, who was the founder of the first, actually, the founder and the first ruler of the third dynasty of Kish in Mesopotamia, southern Mesopotamia, actually, between 2500 to 23. What happened is the dates vary because we're trying to figure out the chronology. Uh, and she was the only queen on the Sumerian king list, which is fascinating. And so shrines were dedicated to her. In fact, there was even an Abdi Hepta, who was the palace mayor ruling in Jerusalem, and according to the Amarna letters, that we know from Akhenaten around 1350 BC. Yeah. So what are the rulers of Jerusalem? Wait, oh, okay. Well, that's another talk, another time. So meanwhile, her worship spreads into Eastern Anatolia, whereas as Kububa, she becomes the goddess protecting Karkemish, located in the upper Euphrates, influencing the early local Hurrians and then the Hittites as well. And then she becomes, from Kububa and Hepet, she becomes Hana Hana, right? And we see her on various rock formations, seated, and she is wearing a cylindrical headdress, and she has a polis on her head, which, by the way, you later on see in Artemis of the Ephesians. And she's holding what looks like a tympanum, kind of a frame drum, or possibly a mirror in one hand, and a puppy capsule in the other, as well. And sometimes it's the pomegranate too. And you can see there's little puppies. Hello, puppies, puppies. There's a little ecstatic religion there. Now, she's understood as, again, Hana Hana. She's also understood as Hepet. She's also understood as Kububa from the name of that the queen on the list. And what's interesting is Kububa will all of a sudden, when it gets to the Phrygian regions, which is the northern part of, and well, actually been to Phrygia, the northwestern part of Anatolia, Kububa becomes known as Kabali, and also known as Mater Kabali. And of course, it's a derivation. Later on, the word will become Kibali. So grandma becomes Kibali through these lines. This is fun. We're just kind of tracing these ideas. Again, mind blown. Okay, so one of the earliest images understood to be that of Kibali, which is originally connected to the east. Well, I don't know, Mesopotamia. Got it. Then to the Hurrians, and then to the Hittites, and then to the Luwians, and one branch goes to the Phrygians, right? You know, this idea splits. But earliest images of this goddess, the mother of gods, or grandmother of gods, I love this, by the ancients, is located upon a rock spur of Mount Sipylus, also known as Spill Mountain. By the ancients, this was actually a dormant volcano. There's some very interesting geographical features. And yes, have I been here? Yes, I have. It's near Magnesia, the environs of Lydia, which of course Lydia now is a derivation of a word that eventually will become Luwian further back. Kibali was believed to occupy this mountain and the region around it. Pausanias, a second century geographer and writer, he writes as follows. He says, the Magnesians who live to the north of Spill Mountain have on the rock Codinus the most ancient of all images of the mother of gods. He says, oh, most ancient. Magnesians say that it was made by Broteus, the son of Tantalus. Broteus was the very unattractive son of Tantalus by Diane. whose sister was Niobe, and the brother was Pelops. Maybe you know this. Unfortunately for Proteus, he was noted for his pride, and when he refused to honor Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, she drove him mad and caused him to burn himself alive. So you don't do that. It's interesting that all of a sudden brings in the Artemis myth in this context, because once again, Kybele and Artemis would be connected together, and that's a whole other talk too. The image was, this image mentioned by Pausanias was rediscovered in 1881 by William Ramsay. It does date back to the late second millennium BCE. It is sculpted out of solid rock. It shows an enthroned goddess with an attendant lion beneath each of her arms. It looks like almost like the sacred woman, the cedar woman, excuse me, of Katahuya. And she is holding her breasts with both of her hands. Again, this is very reminiscent of various Neolithic figures. So I think that's interesting. So there you have it. Now, across much of the Phrygian highlands, monumental rock cut images, often in the form of doorways, are to be found in connection to Kybele. These are sacred thresholds, boundaries between this world and the supernatural. So there is, so once again, we'll be talking about this because these images in stone are connected to the Luwian religious practices, which we will go into detail. Okay. Now there is, of course, there's always variants. So of this goddess, another variant of this name is Huwasana, and there was a Huwasana festival that was located at Hupsina in the lower lands, where she was worshipped amongst other local gods and goddesses, including Lalia, Kapula, La Iria, Awata, and most especially Malaya of the river, which we'll talk about soon. We know that this form of this goddess was especially associated with healing, with the priestess called the Huwasanilia, invoking such a ritual of healing. Now, Huwasana, while she is connected to the mother goddess, she's a localized form, as I said, of it. And there was a local ritual, a festival, okay, so performed for her. For her cult, we have a lot of ritual fragments, which gives us some of the names of her various festivals. Oftentimes here is that we have various, I'm not going to go through all the names of the various officials, although we have seen that there's somebody called In Seskur, who is the Lord of the offerings. And in fact, it turns out that these festivals sometimes have patronage from a king and a queen, and sometimes it's paid for by a private individual. So it can go either way. We find this also out in inscriptions. We do have 23 pieces, fragments talking about the various rituals that take place. So let's go into it here. Okay, so you gotta love the Luwians. So what they do, and they do this a lot, is they highlight all the rituals. They like to outline what the ritual's about. But some aspects of the ritual, like the songs, they'll say, oh, but that's in another text. So it's like, insert here. So they give a nice outline. It's like, oh, here's the outline. Can you flesh it up? Oh, yeah. And they'll actually say, oh, see this tablet for the hymn. It's like, well, I don't have that tablet. Thanks a lot, guys. But I'll give you one of the outlines of the rituals according to the Luwians themselves during this festival. It says, here it is. I'm reading it now. Here it is. It says, make clean. So they do a purification ritual before we'll go through. They clean. Then they drink the holy with wine. So they cleanse themselves. Then they drink the holy with wine. And so the wine itself is believed to have holiness within it. it is sanctified. Of course, the cleaning could also, the way Luwian language works, it also not only mean personal purification, but also can refer to the cleaning or cleansing of a ritual object as well as the element. So you have the wine. So then they drink the holy with wine. For the first time, they drink Huasana's ladle while seated. So they drink the wine with a ladle while seated, dedicated to this goddess. Got it? Then the singer sings. The singer sings. Oh, that's great. What does he sing? See other tablet. The singer recites. What does the reciter recite? See other tablet. But next they drink muli while seated. So they now drink another alcoholic beverage while seated. So, and then the singer sings, and then the singer recites. Thanks. But then they drink Huasana's inner soul while seated. Whoa, so they're drinking in this goddess according to this primary source. And then the singer sings. You can guess what's probably going to happen next, right? And the singer recites. But then they drink Lalaya's ladle while seated. Okay. The singer sings, the singer recites. But then they drink the great sun god while seated. The singer sings, he does not recite. Thanks a lot. So the sun god doesn't get any kind of little special ritualistic poem there. Thanks a lot. But the goddess does. But then they drink Wata and Kupula while seated. The singer sings, he does not recite. So, hey, look, you have an outline of a Luwian ritual, directly the order it goes into. If you want to do a reconstruction of it, can we do a reconstruction of it? Of course we can, because yes, in some cases we do have other aspects, stories mythology and songs that we can kind of try to plug in. We still have lost a lot. That makes it very difficult. Okay, so what happens now? Okay, so now after that, there is the exchange of the liturgical kiss. Yeah, there's a kiss going on there. All right. Then, of course, what happens after that? Then the priestess and the person on whose behalf the festival takes place, what they do after that, this is good, right? They bow down 3 times, and after that, bread is distributed amongst them. So now they have a bread distribution amongst all of those who take part in the festival. At that moment, everybody shares this sense of community, right? So you have, and the bread, we know from other places, the bread is also believed to have the spirit, it's sanctified by the goddess. They are taking in. So you have the priests, the priestesses, taking in the wine and the other alcoholic beverages, and you have the people taking in the bread. And then they share amongst each other's. At that moment, they all share the community with the gods and each other. I'm still reading the inscription, by the way. I was just being descriptive of the general. No. Okay. And then the Ahitra priestess then kiss each other. This kiss is a way to express community with each other and the bonds between one another. Isn't this fun? I promise you details. Here we go. So these are some features of the festival of Huasana. By the way, there are 2 kinds of priestesses mentioned. You have the Muya Wasana and the Muna Salutra. The first is obviously connected to the goddess and is connected to the cult, and the other is more open towards other cults as well as to the male gods that were also celebrated there. So there you have it. There are other bits and pieces that we have here that we can reconstruct. It refers to then her installation. And so there she is, in a sense, there's an image dedicated to her, and the offerings are made to her as well. So, and the Lord of the offering is the one who does this and who literally also drinks in the gods. In fact, I'll just go ahead and read it to you. Now they give to drink to the Allah, true priestess, and the Lord of the offering, and they drink the great sun god while seated. Singer sings. The Huwasanali priestess recites. I'm smiling. I'm not sure if you guys caught it. So, after after you have this first part going on there, and then you have the sharing of the bread, and you have this, this kiss, and then you have the offering there. I find it's interesting that there's no reciting for the sun god, but there is for her. They end the whole thing. Or at least part of it, where they're honoring the sun god, and then they drink the great sun god while seated. The singer sings, and the Huwasani priestess recites in dedication to the goddess. So they go, oh, by the way, if anything that's recited is goddess. If it's the god, we don't do any reciting there. We'll sing for you, but we're not going to recite during this ritual. I think it's funny. I don't know. That's my humor. Okay. Now there's also another fragment here, and we of course mentions other ritual ladles. They like ladles. They're very much into ladles. So it's a very much important to the cultic equipment. This festival lasts for several days, and it was executed. In fact, in some cases, it can happen several times a year if need be. So sometimes some scholars are in disagreement. Some say this ritual is only during the fall season. Others say, no, there seems to be evidence that this happened whenever it is needed. And so, hey, let them fight. But we know that they're connected. Some people say, well, it's the autumn festival because we have found the references to storage of the harvest, pithos or pithoi. So they're saying, well, something must be stored, but it could be used for many different perspectives. Now, we also know that again, it could be a seasonal thing. It could be sporadically throughout the year, whatever needs be. But there you have it. I put it all together. You have it there too. Now let's move on. I wish I could go further on this because there's a lot more on this. Now, what's interesting here is that you're going to have the people are always represented. The people, so you're going to have priestesses doing their deeds, but the people are always connected to the priestesses or priests in some way, which I think is again fascinating. So it is, but the liturgical aspect is divided between the rituals of that which is drink, which one drinks, and one partakes. I know everybody's saying it or thinking it right now. You're thinking of communion, the Eucharist, and I hate to say this, but there is a lot of similarities where the idea is you're taking in, just like you have, you're taking in, you have this transformation of the wine becoming the blood in the Eucharist and the bread becoming the body. And then there's this consummation and there's a spiritual mystery that takes place or believed to take place. And you take in this aspect, you take in these elements. Well, it is interesting that this is not the only example. This is very central towards Luwian religion. This is common knowledge. So, which is fascinating because, Luwians, well, we'll go there a little bit later. So there you have it. Now, moving right along, let's talk about the chief god. The chief god, of course, was Tarhun. And from the Hattic root, Tar, meaning to defeat or to conquer, also known as Tishub. Now, Tarhun is often shown holding an axe. He's holding an axe. Oftentimes, Tarhun, this great storm god, this great father god, is holding a double-headed axe. Now, double-headed axes are very popular in Asia Minor, although sometimes we see him with a mace. Sometimes he's holding a triple thunderbolt. I do want to go to the double axe, but just stop with the triple thunderbolt. I think this is really interesting. Triple thunderbolt. The triple thunderbolt, of course, eventually will become a trident, and you're going to see this amongst the other sky gods that go into the Greco-Roman pantheon. Okay, moving on. So let's start with the double axe. The double axe is used both. We find this in the Luwians use the double axe image quite a bit, and also the Minoans. So very central to it. It's these stylized double axes we find in shrines amongst the Minoans. We find this in Cretan homes. We find this image in palaces. Obviously, we have crude versions. We have fancy versions. One is found in the Dictaean cave, for example. We have ones that are these axes are given as votive offerings in some cases. Sometimes the sacred symbol was set up in a socketed pedestal, so it was independent. Full-size double axes were used by priests to kill sacrificial bulls in various ceremonies. And they're known, of course, these labris are also connected later on to Zeus. Labris. I got your attention now. So this word labris can be found in Mycenaean Linear B, and labris can be connected to the word labyrinth, which could mean house of the double axe. Now, we do know that this double axe is used by the Luwians. We also know that later on, those who are connected to them by blood and culture, known as the Lydians, also use the double axe. And so what we do is kind of understand a little bit more about the Luwians through those who follow after them, the Lydians. And as a source, we have Plutarch. Plutarch, of course, from the 2nd century CE, he writes, Heracles, having slain Hippolytus and taken her axe with the rest of her arms, gave it to Omphale, the king of Lydia, who succeeded her, carried this as one of their sacred insignia of office and passed it down from father and son until Condylos. And then he goes on and on. And so he also says, and having set up a statue of Zeus, he put the axe in his hand and called it God Labrandius. And he continues, it says, labras being the Lydian word for axe. So we get a definition from Plutarch. Thank you very much for that. So this ritual axe continues on even to the Greek and Roman periods of time. In Caria, which of course they're also Luwians, the double axe accompanies their storm gods. For example, Zeus Labrantios, which is a form of Tarhun. In fact, Tarhun is connected to Zeus in many ways. Remember, these are all Indo-Europeans. Okay, so of course, modern interpretations of the double axe vary, but it's interesting because it seems to be in contexts amongst the Minoans connected to a goddess, but amongst the Luwians, they're connected to a god, according to, in fact, in many cases, to Tarhun. Again, I find this absolutely fascinating. So the axe is there. Okay, let's keep on going. Now, the original Hatan inhabitants of Anatolia knew Tarhun, who's this great storm god, this great sky god, who eventually becomes Zeus, who, is connected to this double axe. He is also known as the one with the oak trees, the one with the oak trees. And so, as you know, the oak tree was sacred in many cultures and was associated with the sky god. Even Semitic cultures, the oak, Hebrew word for oak is alun or elon, which happens to be related to the word el. And so, you have the Oaks of Mamre, the famous place, the Oaks of Mamre, where Abraham, of course, had his vision, right? The oaks are connected as sacred trees. Obviously, amongst the Greeks and the Romans, remember the Udana? There's the oaks were sacred there, according to a famous oracle. Even the Norse view the oak as a sacred tree. So Tarhun is connected with the oak tree. Tarhun was known as the mighty and the overpowering. He also is known as the one who runs in front to help the king. He is often invoked to smite and destroy one's enemy. If his rituals are not performed properly, he will punish that person. And in fact, we find various curse tablets connected to him. Tarhun's sacred animal is always the bull, the Tarhun having a horn crown indicating this association. Now, it doesn't mean that his imagery always has the bull, but he's always associated with the bull in rituals. Because the Hittites, while they show him in a chariot as pulled by bulls, the Luwians instead have him being pulled by horses. The Luwians, they're so into horses, and so horse imagery is very popular with them. For the Luwians, then, he is not just the storm god, but he is a god of fertility. He is the god of horses. By the way, the horses of Tarhun are mentioned in the spell to ward away the plague. I'll just read it. After they bring the fodder for the god's horses and sheep fat, and they recite as follows: you have harnessed your horses, let them eat, and let them be satiated. Let your chariot be anointed with sheep fat. Turn toward your land, O storm god. Turn in friendship toward the land of Hati. And so this was said, hey, you know what? Send that plague back away to Hati. And so, it's fascinating. So horses are still important to Tarhun. But he is also the god of vineyards, with grapes and grain both associated with him, revealing his close proximity to agriculture. For the Luwians, then, he is a weather god, but he's also a god of fertility. He's oftentimes holding a cluster of grapes and ears of grain. In fact, he is in one place, there's a declaration that goes as follows: I set up this Tarhunt of the vineyard, saying, Tarhun shall make this vineyard grow, and the vine shall grow. In another place, I myself planted this vineyard, Tarhun, the vineyard, I set up. Now, King Warpuwala of Tuwanas depicted him with ears of grain and bunches of grapes as well. Tarhun, there's a story. Here's some mythology. Tarhun was conceived after Tarhun was conceived after Kumarbi bit off and swallowed his father, named Anu, swallowed his father's genitals. I said so slowly. What? Tarhun was conceived after Kumarbi bit off and swallowed his father Anu's genitals. That's how he's born, which is similar to the story of Uranus and Kronos and Zeus, right? The Hittites believed that this particular, that a certain Alalis, who was king of heaven, and then what happened is Anus then overthrew Alalis, and then Kumarbis then deposed Anus and swallowed his genitals. But then this was a mistake, because then Kumarbis became pregnant, and he became pregnant with Tashub, Tarmissus, and the Tigris River. Oh, wow. So, yeah, once again, it's the same myth reappeared centuries later. Boeotia, Hestia believed that Chaos was king, and then Uranus. What? Yes. And then Cronus neutered Uranus and took over, but soon begot Zeus and the elder gods. The only difference is that for Hesiod, Cronus's crime was not linked to Cronus's children. So there you have it. Anyway, but one of the central legends or stories connected to Ashub uh, is the act of slaying the dragon Ilyankas. Now, uh, the story goes as follows. I got to tell you a story. The story goes, once upon a time, there was the storm god and was fighting the great serpent by the name of Ilyankas. And they're fighting in the city of Kishkulas. But the serpent actually defeats the storm god. So the defeated storm god then calls together all the gods, because, he's defeated, yeah, including his daughter, Inara. And he needs to have some help. So Inara, what she does to try to defeat this great serpent, Ilyankas, this great dragon, she prepares a feast. And she fills these vats with wine and beer. I got to tell you, you got to love, again, the Luwians because they're not just beer people. They're wine people and they're beer people. And they have other alcoholic beverages too. They like to drink anyway. And they believe the gods like to do the same thing. Lots of drinking going on. But anyway, so she's making these vats full of wine and beer. And then she travels, to the city of Zagorata. And she asks a hero, a hero by the name of Hupasaya to aid her. Hupasaya agrees, but Hupasaya, I don't like Hupasaya. Hupasaya agrees. He says, yeah, I agree. I'm going to do this. I'm going to help you. But I know you're a goddess, Inara, and I want to have sex with you. So if you have sex with me, I'll do whatever you want. Okay. Inara agrees. Sex with a goddess. Never a good idea. So Inara then conceals Hupasaya, hides him away, and invites the serpent and his sons to a feast. The serpent and the sons, they can eat all the food, and they drink, and they become terribly drunk. At that point, Hupasaya emerged from his hiding place, and he bound the serpent with a rope. Whereupon the storm god now arrives, and he slays the serpent. I mean, he's not even there. He's just waiting around. He lets this mortal, this Hercules-like hero, right, do the work, and his daughter do the work. But now he's going to go after, he's all bound up the serpent and slays the serpent. But the story's not over yet. For Inara, for some strange reason, confines Hupasaya in his house. In a house on a rock in a place called Taruka. And what she does is she says that you can never look out of the house window. Don't you dare look out of the house window because you could see your wife and children there. Wait a second. So this guy, he slept with the goddess, he's got a wife and kids. She's whatever you do, don't look out the window. After 20 days, he looks out the window, and just so happens his family is there, and he demands to be released. Inara asks him why he looked out the window, and then we're thinking, why? Tell us. And the record cuts off. Oh, yes, the manuscript cuts off, slices off, it's over. Oh, no, I know. It's like you're getting right to the good part. What happened? So you can make up the ending. I'm going to go overtime. You know that already. So, but hopefully you're as fascinated with this as I am. So I know it's 9:30, but we're still steaming in there. So I don't have any questions, and I'm going to have to answer them And I'll do that by reading through this, or actually, another myth from the same text, yeah, but it's also heavily damaged. It begins with an invocation to rain. Here, the serpent again defeats the storm god, and he took from him his heart and his eyes. And so this blind now, uh, this blind god marries a poor man's daughter, and so then what happens? They have a son, and that son in turn marries the serpent's daughter. Now I don't know what happened here, right? So the storm god continuously tells his son to ask his father-in-law to return his heart and his eyes. Eventually, of course, the serpent returns them, and the son takes them to his father. Made whole again, obviously, the storm god travels down to the sea where the storm god vanquishes the serpent. His son then actually joins the serpent and begs his father not to kill him. And so, well, but the storm god did, but it takes off. Yeah. Another myth has Tarhun fighting the great sea creature by the name of Idumuma, who's also possibly a snake or a serpent. Now, the storm god of the army is mentioned in the Mutkali second treaty with Walusa, with Troy. And so once again, there's a connection here with the idea of the storm god as connected to the military, connected to the army. According to late Luwian text, Tarhuna gave the king royal power, courage, and marched before him in battle. In later Luwian reliefs, Tarhuna, known as Tuhunza, is depicted as a bearded god with a short skirt or a kilt and a helmet. Now let's go into another one. Another deity is known as Telepanu. Telepanu, which means exalted son of Tarhun, it is the god proper of agriculture. But in his case, he is the god intended to embody the crops. But he's also connected with the weather in relation to the crops. According to the Telepanu myth, Telepanu disappears and he causes all fertility to cease, both plant life and animal life. The myth goes, I'm actually have the myth here, that mist sees the windows. I'm going to stop there. Windows again. Now you're going to see windows and doors are all about this. Yeah, the mist sees the windows. Smoke sees the houses. On the hearth, the logs were stifled. On the altars, the gods were stifled. Which is interesting. The gods are on the altars. The literal depiction of them, right? So again, the direct association, right? Okay. The sheep refused her lamb. The cow refused her calf. So Telepanu is not only connected to agriculture, he is connected to animal fertility as well. Telepanu, I'm reading the text. Telepanu went off and took away the grain, the fertility of the herds, growth, plenty, and the satiety into the wilderness, to the meadow and to the moor. Humans and gods perish from hunger. So what's going to happen now? Telepanu disappears. In order to stop the havoc and devastation, the gods seek Telepanu, but they fail. They can't find him. So Hana, hey, we have Hana, grandma goddess, the mother goddess. She sends a bee to find him. And when the bee did, it stings Telepanu and smears wax on him. And the god becomes really angry. He begins to wreak destruction upon the earth. Finally, Kamru Respa, or Resepa, the goddess of magic, calmed Telepanu down, and given his anger, takes his anger. So this god of magic, Kamrusepa or Rusepa, the goddess of magic, calms Telepanu, who's angry because he got stung by a bee, for heaven's sakes, right? He gives his anger to the doorkeeper of the underworld. So once again, we have a portal. So his anger is taken from him and given to the doorkeeper. Interesting. Another god is known as Tiwad. Tiwad was the Luwian sun god. Now, the word Tiwat means, of course, god of the sun, and is derived from the Indo-European Diwa, which of course means sky god. Now, what is interesting is, of course, Tiwad's epithets were father as well, so he is Tiwad of heavens. Now, here's where it's fun. He is a Tiwad of the heavens. He is the sun god of the heavens. Here we go. The Luwians also had a sun goddess known as Taya Mrs. Tiwad. Taya Mrs. Tiwad. Who's she? She is the sun goddess of the earth. So while Tia Mrs. Tiwad is the sun goddess of the earth, Tiwad is the sun god. And so where do they get this idea from? Well, you have the sun, it's in the sky, and look, where is it going to go? It goes down through the horizon. So if it's going down on the horizon, it transfers, in a sense, that's no longer the domain of the god. The earth is the domain of the goddess. And so as the sun travels beneath the earth, it's under its goddess territory. So you got to have a goddess in charge there. Huh? So I love this dualism there. So she is the sun goddess of the earth, right? So it's interesting. They are invoked together by this famous writer who just calls herself the Old Woman. She writes lots of hymns. We have them. I actually have them here. We don't have time to read them all. But yeah, she's a great hymn writer, and she inspires many other hymn writers. But she's known as the Old Woman. And I'm going to read you the Old Woman in a ritual to heal a patient. So in order to heal a patient, you need to have the power of the sun of the sky, which is male, but you also need to have the power of the sun of the earth, under the earth, which is goddess, to heal. And so this goes as follows. Here's the ritual. I'm reading it to you right now. If he is alive, Tiwad will deliver him from above. If he is dead, the sun goddess from the earth will deliver him, the man from curse and perjury. Oh, so that means that curses are here in this life, but they continue in the underworld, and that is the realm of the goddess. Luwian magic frequently calls upon the sun goddess to remove evil of all different kinds. She is also related to the Hurrian goddess, sun goddess, Alani. Now you have Kamrusepa. Remember Kamrusepa? Yeah, okay, so remember she's the magical one, right? So she is the Luwian and Hittite goddess of healing. She's also medicine and magic. So again, Kam, K-A-M, Ru, R-U-S-E-P-A, Sepa. So what does her name mean, right? Her name means, well, genius from Sepa. Okay, so and Kamru, which is related to Kamar, which means smoke. So her name means genius smoke. She's the genius smoke. And you can see how that refers to the various rituals, smoke that does various things. This connects her to magic and the fire that is used in her rituals, as well as the fireplace of the house, the hearth, where it was, as we know, because it talks about this, lots of magical rituals are done in the hearth of the home, private religion. She is a part, as you know, the Telpinu myth concerning the missing vegetative god. According to the story, as I said, she enlists the help of a human to perform a ritual to remove the anger of Telpinu. She uses by the way, I'm going to give you right now, I want to give you so many details. Oh, I wish I could keep going. But I'll keep going a little bit further because I'm going to give you so many exact details, and people don't know this. I mean, you're not going to see this hardly anywhere. So here it is. She uses the following ingredients in her ritual to remove anger, and that anger then gets given to the guardian of the underworld. So if you guys want to know what removes anger, to get rid of anger, here it is. In her ritual, she uses cedar essence, sap, chaff, grain, sesame, figs, olives, grapes, ointment, malt, honey, cream, oil. There it is. Look, you can do it yourself. Have a bad day at work, you know, you're like, I gotta transfer my anger somewhere, And so I need to give it to the guardian of the underworld. It's like, hey, and so you just kind of rub it around and find these ingredients. That's okay. But now upon completion of the ritual, however, it's a little bit harder to do this part. But this again is within the context of a god calming down. She sacrifices 12 rams of the sun god, and then it goes from there. But you don't have to worry about the rams. Okay, there you go. So the goddess Kamru Sepa specializes in purification and healing magic. Again, you're never going to hear this anywhere, so hey, take advantage. Her spell of fire is recited over illnesses of the head to turn that which inflicts the person in the smoke. By the way, it's interesting. While they're very holistic, we can talk about that. The whole body, treat the whole body. There seems to be something special about the spirit of the head, and then as separate from the body. And this, of course, goes back to the earlier ideas that the spirit was within the head. The goddess is also in charge of the household, focusing upon protecting mothers in childbirth. Her magic words are pronounced as the baby is born. So you say her magic words as the baby is born. Then the goddess acts in the capacity of a midwife. The midwife, I got to tell you this. This is great. You'll love this. When it turns to the midwife, there is a midwife combing ritual to take care of the mother. Combing, as in hair combing. No, yes. So what they do is that, I'm going to read you the formula. You get, so here it goes. I'm quoting from the source. They send for the midwife, and she lifts up the child. Okay, so picture the child being lifted up. She, Kamru Sepa, takes 9 combs. So you have to get 9 combs. You embody now the goddess. We can go into that later on. Yeah, you're possessed by the goddess. And what you do is you comb her hair. That's nice. Yeah, during the magic. And what do? As you comb the hair, you say as follows of the person. So the midwife combing ritual goes as follows. They send for the midwife. She lifts up the child, and okay, so the combing ritual is as follows. So these meta evils shall be combed away. So she's combing away the evils. The illness of the eyes is combed away. The illness, I'm reading the ritual. The illness of the ears shall be combed away. The illness of the mouth, the illness of the throat, the illness of the hand. Okay. Now, this is whose hair is being combed. If you look closer, it's mom's hair being combed. Isn't it? So after, the baby doesn't have any hair. So after mom gives birth, you're having this magic, given to the mom that then goes upon the kid. And of course, it continues. It says, for all parts of the body, she makes her rounds. And so she is sanctified. Okay. And so the mother is thoroughly protected after giving birth to a baby. This combing ritual was also performed on sheep, which is performed along with the sun god, and again was intended to ensure health and protection. It's been nice and relaxing, right? Okay, what more? Here we go. The moon god had the same name for both Luwians and Hittites, known as Arma. I want to bring up the moon god because this is another interesting one. The moon god it really is a lunatic. That's right. You see, the Arba is a moon god, but also Arba can also be a moon goddess, a moon god, a moon goddess. Both, yeah, god, goddess. Once again, and during this time, when the moon is in charge, anything is allowable as long as no one gets caught. What? So she's like, so he and she are this very open, right? The followers of Arma tend to make elaborate plots, hiding behind multiple veils of secrecy. They have a strict code of secrecy. In fact, you can't break them, and they're any kind of, you can't say anything. They're kind of like so. Those who are especially devoted to this moon deity, whether it's male or female, they're like a secret society. Arma was also closely connected to the months of pregnancy, and so he's invoked in various rituals association with conception, carrying the baby to term, and birth. Although it is said he or she could cause times of distress during pregnancy, and so is a very tricky deity. From the evidence of personal names, we know that this god and goddess is worshipped all the way to the 1st century CE, only 2,000 years ago, because we still see in Caria, Mysia, Pamphylia, and Cilicia evidence of this. Well, okay, now we also have Runtaya, who is the goddess of the hunt, who has a close connection with deer. So he was depicted as a man standing on a deer. And so there you have it. And sometimes known as god deer, and depicted with horns or antlers. Once again, very popular. He was treated as a protective deity, connected to hunting. His sacrifices were gazelles, and he rewarded the worshiper for these gifts with success in hunting. We also have Lady Allah. Of course, Lady Allah means high, so Lady High, and we know that she's very important too. This goddess was Allah. It's interesting, you see the connection there too. This goddess Allah was generally worshipped with the god of the meadow. This god of the meadow is known as Inara. So Allah and Inara were worshipped together. But she was oftentimes known as Allah. These are words dedicated to her. They're just known as Allah of the animal world, Allah of the quiver, Allah of the bow. She's also known as Allah of the mountains, Allah of all rivers, Allah of health, Allah the mild. She was a goddess of healing and health as well, who brings on the harvest, Allah, and sometimes she's known as Alamis. So she's Alamis, and again, we go, well, this easily becomes Artemis too. I know. See, all these strains are kind of coming together. In the Iron Age, however, she merges with the goddess Kububa. In fact, we know from Campania, excuse me, she's known as Lady Allah Kubaba. So there you have it. So yeah, there's another goddess by the name of Malaya. Malaya, she is the mother of wine and grain. So what happens is she's described as being in the form of a woman, and offerings are made along rivers and along mountains dedicated to her. Malaya is sometimes viewed in the plural, being two goddesses sometimes at the same time, and invoked to revive vineyards that were deemed unfertile. You have another god by the name of Apolluna. Apolluna was the god invoked by the king Alessandrus of the city of Lalusa, which is Troy. And he is called on to secure this treaty with the Hittites. So this Apolluna is described as the storm god of the army. Apollonius, of course, is Apollo. That's right. Apollo is worshipped at Troy, which kind of makes sense, right? Because, Apollo was on the side of the Trojans, was he not? And he is indeed understood as the great divine warrior for the Trojans. We have to remember it is Apollo who helps to kill Paris. I'm sorry, helps Paris to kill Achilles. Excuse me. The name, of course, compares well with Cypriot or Cyprus Apollon, the Doric Apollon, and so it has this feeling of, well, the root could mean the one who entraps, and the one who entraps could easily be connected to the idea of being a hunter. But what's interesting is earlier on, he's also connected with plagues, to the Hurrian plague god Apollo, who is the deity of the plague, and so will be worshipped as also Smithian Apollo, who's connected to also mice and who are connected to plagues and so forth. So there you have it. And we see connections there. I can go on forever with this one. We have also connections with Lada. I want to mention just a few others, right? But thank you, young men, for being here. We're going to get to some of the group ones. We also know that we have a series of goddesses or gods called Inerwantis, who took over various tasks of protector deities, right? So, but I want to mention another Luwian god that's connected to these collectives of deities, and his name is Santa. Santa. They worship Santa. Santa is known to, he's a rather dark deity, and he's attended by these gods by the known as Inerwantis, also known as Anerwanizi, and these attendants. So they're not. I know we're thinking, are they little cute little servants of Santa? Well, no, they wear bloody clothes. They have tied up sashes, and hold daggers, and have bows and arrows, and are kind of mean and connected to plagues. Oh no! All right, so much for Santa's happy workshop. Santa was the death-bringing god, and he's also known as the war god. He's known to be consistently angry in his various depictions. He's called upon in various funerary stelae to make sure that he protects the tombs from tomb robbers. In fact, he's called upon in various curses to feed enemies to his dogs. Okay, so many, in fact, I'll just kind of go through this. Many scholars have noted that his association with death could also be the equivalent of the Dian vegetative god. He is known to have a double axe. He stands on a winged and horned lion. And I'm going to read an invocation to Santa. You guys ready? So write this down for Christmas time. I have something for Santa. You guys ready? Here he goes. Come, Santa. Let the Enrowantis deities come with you. They who are wearing bloody clothes, who have bound upon themselves the sashes of the mountain dwellers, who are girt with daggers, who hold strong bows and arrows, come and eat. Will we swear an oath? Oh, that's not very nice. Period. Yeah, so there's another invocation that I'm not going to read, but it's basically praying to the Santa to eat your enemies, to consume them. There's also, of course, the dogs that are sacred dogs, but who are also connected with Santa. He has an entourage of these, some of these are called the Nicaragua. may the dogs of Nicaragua eat his head. so, so anyway, there's some dark ones here. But I want to wrap up. I know we've gone over time, but I really want to wrap up. And I want to talk about aspects of the religion. I want to say that, first of all, Hittite magic. Uh, Luwian magic. Luwian magic was believed by the Hittites to be more powerful than their own magic. And what's interesting is that one particular region seems to be the center of Luwian magic, and that's Arzawa. And a lot of these rituals involve scapegoatism, especially in trying to get rid of the plague. A large portion of these rituals and magic are written by women. In fact, the majority of these are written by women. So women are definitely connected to the realm of magic. These female practitioners are the ones who serve the needs of private persons. So, in fact, there is a one particular spell of that is against sorcery and is attributed to a certain Ali. And so the ritual of Ali goes as follows. The ritual of Ali, which turns against sorcery, is performed to purify the bewitched patient and to return the impurities to the person who caused the state of bewitchment. So what happens is this, is that whatever evil magic has been done to you, this ritual will then take that evil magic and give it all back to the other person who gave it out in the first place. So there you have it. That's kind of interesting. Moving right along here, I'm kind of skipping through things. Here we go. All right, skip that too. Sorry, I want to make sure that we have here. Okay, the scapegoat rituals. Let's go to scapegoat rituals. Let's go to the ritual of Zarpaya. The ritual of Zarpaya goes as follows. I'm going through it now. The first half of the ritual involves an oath taking on the part of the participants. This is followed by the second half, which involves a scapegoat ritual of sorts. The human scapegoat in this case are 9 young boys. And and so the theme, of course, connects to, of course, a ritual directed to Santa, the Luwian god of death, and the Arawantis, a group of deities who usually connect to about 9 in number, who are earthbound protector deities with demonic qualities. And I have it here. And what I think is interesting is that this ritual begins as follows. It speaks of a plague in the land. And so the head of each household gives permission for the person who's going to officiate the ritual to enact a certain ritual to protect them, most of which refers to hanging various items from a peg placed onto the front gate of the house. And I have it right here. So what are the stuff that are on this peg? Here it is. I hang up a hoopla of bronze, a shaggy lion skin, a footstool of basalt, a footstool of lapis. The paw is strong of a bear, a paw of a wild goat, and of a black wool and red wool and yellow wool, and the sinews of a dog, right, is on one peg. First and foremost, in front of that side, he hits the apricot wood peg into the gate. And so you go, so there is basically, apparently there's a bag of stuff that I just mentioned, these ingredients, as put into a peg. The bag is pegged into the gate. Now, guess what? There is another peg that's put in, and this is what's in the bag. This peg is so basically you have the peg hanging, and you have the peg, and another one that's put onto the gate. And this is the ingredients into the gate. He hangs a cooked kugaloo of barley flour, a kugulu of barley, a harutu of barley flour. These are measurements, and 1 jug of wine. And then also he hangs another jug of wine and barley flour on the other side. So they put these on there, they implant these, and then what happens from there is they go into the courtyard. So the assumption is, you got to understand how these houses are built. You have a front gate, and you have a courtyard, and then you have the house behind it. So you put these pegs on either side of this gate. You enter into the courtyard, and what do you do there? According to this, you set up an axe of bronze. You also set up a warm bread, thick bread with cheese, and a dagger, a strung bow, and an arrow. And this is placed upon a table in the courtyard. Wow. Then, down in front of the wicker table, he places a poor vessel of wine, and also a drinking, a pitcher of drinking beer. And then they bring in 1 billy goat, and the master of the estate libates it with wine before the table for Santas. Then he holds out the bronze axe and says as follows: "Come, Santa, let the Enwatas deities come with you, they who are wearing bloody clothes, who have bound on themselves the sashes of the mountain dwellers, and who girt with daggers, strung with bows and arrows. Come and eat." And when he has finished speaking, he places the bronze axe down on the table, and they slit the throat of the billy goat. Then what they do is he takes the blood and the straw that was left in the mud, and he anoints that with blood. Then they bring the raw liver and the heart, and the master of the estate holds them out for the gods. Further, he takes a bite and initiates it, and he puts his lips on the straw and sips. So basically, this is kind of gross. He takes a straw and he sips the blood from the liver and the heart. Ew, yuck! I don't want to do this ritual. Let's not do. Well, this is an underworld ritual, but there you have it. And then of course after that, we have bitten into the raw liver. O Santas and Enwatas deities, did not step in my gate again. Then they cook the liver and heart on a fire, and then they butcher the entire goat plain. I told you, I'm going to tell you all the details. Don't do this at home. This is pretty gross. It actually goes on, but this is a little better. Then the fat arrives. They bring up the liver and heart and the flesh of everything to God. With it, they bring 2 times 9 thick loaves made from wheat flour. He breaks 9 loaves. Over these, they place the liver and heart and sets them back on the table and says as follows: "Eat, O sun god of heaven, above and below. Let the gods of the fathers of the house eat. Let the 1,000 gods eat. And for this oath be witnesses." Next, he libates the wine 9 times before the table, and it goes on and on. And he brings in 9 boys who have not gone to a woman. 1 boy who put on a goat skin, and that one walks in front and calls out in the manner of a wolf. Then they surround the tables and devour the shoulder and the breast of the animal. And then the master of the house, holding a staff branch, steps into the gate, and they make the final declaration. And let the door shut out evil and keep in good. And they say this: let the door shut out evil and let keep in the good. And they do that over and over again. Well, now you know too much. And then, of course, you have also a donkey substitution spell as well, which is, I think, is interesting here. Here is that I know you're worried about the kid in the goat skin. Nothing happens to the boy in the goat skin. There's no human sacrifice there. But I know you kind of worry about that a little bit because, but there, the substitution, what happens is the goat is that they go as follows. So how it works is the disease that you have through a magical ritual, via the Lord of the ritual, is then transferred over to the poor donkey who's substituted for it. And I'm going to read the ritual. They, disease, shall receive them, the 12 parts of this human being, those which are of divine origin, and those which are caused by evil magic, and they shall follow the 12 body parts of the donkey. They shall keep drinking the blood of the donkey. They shall keep eating its fat. They shall keep cutting off its sinews, and they shall keep breaking its bone. And so what happens is they do this ritual, and they transfer the disease or the illness, whatever it is that's ailing that person, but all parts of the body, because they see the body is all connected, and they transfer through the magic to the goat. And they say, therefore, the gods of disease, of famine and disease, will then focus on the goat instead of the human. So it's a transfer. So, okay, I'm going to close with three more thoughts. So here is three more thoughts. Here it is. There is what is called the Paskuwati ritual. This is a rite designed to help a man overcome sexual impotence. You guys ready? So here's the remedy. So first of all, the ritualistic, the person who's in charge of the ritual, places the feminine symbols of the spindle and distaff into the patient's hands. Next, the man, I'm reading the inscription, walks under a gate that she, who is the person who's doing this ritual, has constructed out of reeds. Then, after that, the priestess, the ritualist, now takes the spindle and the staff away from him and gives him the masculine symbols of the bow and arrow. Fourth, the ritualist, in this case again a woman, declares, I myself have taken femininity away from you and have given masculinity back to you. You have cast off the behavior of woman and you have taken up the behavior of man. Now, it's notes that you can see where we're going here. Now, what happens is apparently, it's interesting because this ritual, of course, can be done the other way around as well, right? So in a sense, it makes a female into male, but of course, obviously, because it's Luwian, they work the other way to make male into female through this ritual. It's interesting, right? Let's keep going. Another magical formula called the Lama ritual is also associated with the same thing. And once again, Lama means the effeminate, and Lama, and it moves from. We'll go through this. So, what happens is the ritual goes as follows. It's another ritual, it's more elaborate. And once again, so we're going to have these rituals, which I think is interesting. That's connected to potency, but it seems to also be connected to identification, where a person who views themselves, or the community views themselves as female, will be converted over to male, but also if they view themselves as male, will be converted over to female. I'm just reading this, so I mean these are inscriptions. So hey, there's no agenda here. So here we go. The ritual, the second ritual, sees as follows. This is, of course, obviously the male one. But of course, again, Luwian always goes both ways, as we see with the dualistic aspects of the deities. When evening falls, blue and red strings of wool are wrapped around the patient's feet, hands, and neck, and also around his bed, around its four legs. At this point, the patient goes to sleep. Then as dawn breaks, the man, all the strings are collected and taken away. Then at this point, a young virgin is brought to the house where the ceremony takes place and stands at its entrance. The officiator orders the girl to cry out as follows. So she goes to the door and she cries out, "Come out, Lama," the female. Lama, the manly, will come in. During the next part of the ceremony, participants then go to a remote and isolated place where it says where the plow does not reach, where a makeshift gate is constructed. another gate. Identical offerings are made at both sides of the gate, and a sacrifice is offered to Lama, the female, Lama of the realm of nature. After performing some more ritual practices, they all pass through the gates. They all pass through. The last person to pass through it demolishes the gate and shouts while the rest of them run off. Once they have left the place, they block the road behind them and head back to town. Look at these elaborate rituals. After receiving a favorable bird omen, they enter the town and everybody washes up. They leave the town again, and then some more rites take place, including an offering of sacrifice, this time in honor of Lama the man. And so this is part of this conversion aspect. So there you have it. Once again, it's about potency. So you can see this could be used strictly in the idea also of potency when it comes to the male potency, and the reverse when it comes to female fertility. It also can be used, as we know from the inscriptions, when it comes to identity as well. And so many writers today find this extremely fascinating. It's probably one of the reasons why this is not talked about a lot, but there you have it. And you can see how these ideas go into Kibble, right? The Kibble cult, where you have the rituals of the male becoming female through a change, right? And you're seeing these trends and these ideas are already within Luwian belief systems. Now, there you have it. Now, I have to close this up. I wish I could go on forever. Think about this for a little bit. I got 35 pages of 55 pages summarized at least, so you have an idea. But I want to say just a few closing words, and that is that the Luwians are also obsessed with anything connected to threshold magic. And so they believe that windows and doorways and gates are openings to the other world. They're openings to the underworld as well. And so these ideas will connect to even various roads and places that will head to this doorway that's cut in stone, and yet it doesn't lead to anywhere. And so they'll put rituals, they'll put offerings there in front of this stone doorway, or through these windows, which connects to the idea of the Epiphany windows that we see in Greco-Roman period of time, that there's revelations that happen through the windows. So these are portals, sacred portals. Some people have said as follows, that the doorways connect to the underworld and the windows connect to the realm of the world above. Isn't that fascinating? Hence the Epiphany windows that you see in many big temples. Are you guys enjoying this? I am. So you have these thresholds. Also, it's interesting because there'll be the sacred crossways, where you have a T shape that you see here. And then, of course, you'll have a goddess of the crossways. And oftentimes Hecate is a goddess of the crossways. And the idea is that the road actually continues into another realm. So even though we see it end, and there's a goddess there, or, Hecate or Herm or whatever it may be, right? The belief is that no. The Luwian belief that goes into Greco-Roman beliefs, of course, very Anatolian, is that this road actually continues and permeates into another realm on the other side. So if you go to Turkey today and you see all these carved doorways and you see all these windows, these ancient Luwian carvings and so forth. Just think to yourself that they thought that these were openings to the underworld. And then this, of course, connects to also Anatolian tomb culture too. So you'll see that there. So portals and wow, there's almost like transubstantiation when it comes to the energy changes when it comes to materials. Because I want to mention this, I did talk about a little bit, but the fact that they believe that the actual energy of the gods can enter into people through various rituals, which I didn't have a chance to talk about. Ecstatic rituals, sometimes done with various substances like puppies and wine and beer and everything, together. And they have also orgastic festivals. That's right. So sex is looked at as connecting to the divine in many ways. You see that there too. This goes into the various ecstatic belief systems, including, of course, the Dionysian mysteries, which are connected also to Anatolia, right? Whoa, right? Yeah, so you can see that the Luwians really set the tone for Anatolian religion even to come. So they carry on the stories and beliefs and perspectives that connect the Minoans and the Mycenaeans to the west, to those of Mesopotamia, and the Hurrians to the east. Some aspects of Hittites thrown in, and boom, put it together, and they create this culture that then becomes the Lydians and the Lycians and the Carians. And then, of course, the Greeks will come over and there'll be interactions in the Hellenistic era and the Romans. And so, this is a big soup. But a lot of these beliefs and ideas we still have today. It permeates our world. And it's amazing how much the Luwians are important when it comes to the history of religion. It's astonishing that we don't know more about this today, because as you figured out from this talk, we have a lot of information. We just need to have more interest. And there's over 300 cities that are sitting there ready to be excavated if only you are interested in excavating these places. And yes, there are records to be found in these cities. More information. So we are on the threshold of learning about a new civilization that should go into every world civilization. A book should be in every world civilization, and it should be well known. And it should not be a secret. Of course, maybe those moon followers will say, no, keep it a secret, but it shouldn't be a secret. And I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you so much. We got through it. You survived. And maybe you learned a lot, right? Okay, Doris says, with the focus on thresholds, did they have rituals involving physical thresholds similar to mediation practices of extreme physical exertion, mixed with fasting to bring visions? I'm going to tell you this. Absolutely, did they have meditation rituals? And as far as, yes, there is always a shamanistic aspect to their belief. And we have a lot with this. So the answer is yes, there is. And I didn't even talk about the fact that, the frame drum, the frame drum that we all love. The frame drum came from the Middle East. It was ignored by the Hittites. The Luwians are all, hey. And the Luwians incorporate the frame drum, and they have rituals in which they drink wine from the frame drum. Isn't that great? And then the frame drum then goes into to the Kibble cult, and obviously into Greece. So that's how. So it is the Luwians that bring us the frame drum to the West. So I hope that helps. But I know there's so much. I guess I know this. I know there's a book here. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. There's so much information. I guess I got 55 pages of that was not even the tip of the iceberg. And here, most of you have not heard of anything about this, right? I mean, look, it shows you how much we don't know. And I'm so happy to get this talk out, because I'm hoping that more people will watch this and be inspired and say to themselves, you know what? I want to become an archaeologist, and I want to become a Luwian archaeologist, and I want to work on these 300 plus cities that are sitting underneath the dirt. And I want to be the ones to find these tablets, because I do have friends who are working on Luwian. They're mostly a Turkish archaeologists, and they find, what they're doing is doing explorations. They're digging down into the site because they're doing, exploratory, if it's worth it. And they pull up tablets. So, I mean, it's not like there's no tablets. They can pull up like, oh, okay, here's another one. So if we are more systematic of it, we can actually put together and find a whole literature waiting for us. So I'm hoping that will get people excited to do this, because this is the next big civilization. And the Hittites are cool, but the Hittites treated them like second-class citizens. But the Hittites are all, we have the plateau. Oh, that's great. You have the plain. That's wonderful. The Luwians are the ones that have the good land. They have the coastal regions. I mean, that's better. And they're an interesting civilization. I mean, even the Hittites realize that their magic is better than their own. I mean, I think it's just jealousy. So, okay. Any question? Yeah. Frame drums are really old. Yes, absolutely, Darren. Yes. Yeah. So, but I'm talking about, the transmission of that idea. I'll cover that. It comes to the Middle East, other places. This is the Luwians are the ones who carry it over. Hittites are on. What's the frame drum? It actually runs along the lower coast, the southern coast. Excuse me, Asia Minor.
Are you talking about the tar? Is that the frame drum?
Huh?
You talking about like the tar? The ones that you play?
So yeah. This
okay.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's unique to that region.
Yeah, it is.
So,
yeah. You said the male-female ritual was from inscriptions. And interesting. I'm interested more finding out more about that. Yeah, because you're probably the first one to ever. You're one of the few people that have ever heard it. This, by the way, is buried. I found this in a journal that was so buried. It's hard to get to, but I can find. If you're interested, I'll find the information. So, but it is, yeah. It's I think almost to the point of being intentionally buried. It's bothersome. Yeah. So when I did this research, I had to do a lot of work. Usually, you can find this stuff, through access through, interlibrary contexts, but some of these, however, were a little bit more tricky. I'm actually looking right now for that source, but if I can find it here, I'll find it. Yeah, okay, I'll find it. I'll look for it. Contact me afterwards. So, any other questions? Dorian says, did their rituals commune with their gods' energies have any connection to Yoruba tradition where Orisha are invited into a person's body? Okay, Dorian, I really do love this question. And I'm going to say it's part of ancient religion in general. So Yoruba is an example of religions of possession that we see in sub-Saharan Africa. We see this in North America, in Mesoamerica, in South America. We see this in Southeast Asia. We see this. So this is part of the idea is that the community is very shamanistic. Northern Europe as well. You commune with deities and you are possessed by them. And sometimes you got to help them along by giving them their area code. So you have to wear a mask saying, hey, I want this one in me. See this mask here? I want that one in me. Or you do what the Luwians do, and they just simply say, hey, why don't you come in me? Or they'll do this. They will take on the name of that deity. So you say the words and you say, I am, and you say, you are this. I am this. So they'll say, I am Artemis, or I am, whatever, There is a Christian heresy known as Montanism that spread in the middle of Anatolia, in the exact area of the Dionysian, Ghibli mysteries, and they were known to be possessed by God, and they will say, I am God, I am life, I am bread. And they did the exact same Luwian kind of ritual in a Christian context. Yeah, I love it, right? These are the Montanists. You're interested? Look up Montanist, Montanist. And so, yeah, so they're just connecting with these ancient ideas that go back into the same exact area. Uh, aren't those called holy rollers or people speaking in tongues? Yes, but of course, oftentimes here's the difference. And the early church fathers had a situation with this. In typically Pentecostal tongues, the idea is they're speaking maybe as a prophet, but speaking as God in many Pentecostal circles and charismatic circles is considered a blasphemous. God says this. You take on the role of Ezekiel or Isaiah. You are a prophet, but saying I am Jesus, oftentimes is problematic, right? From a Pentecostal standpoint, does that make sense? Or from a charismatic standpoint. And the early church fathers wrote against the Montanists for this exact same reason. They said, well, you guys are not saying that God is saying this. You're saying that you are God saying this. But this is very much the Montanist ideas. It goes back to the Luwians, who had this idea that we are possessed by this God or by this goddess. And so therefore we speak as this God and goddess. We become identical with them. Does that make sense? And so this tradition just jumps into the Montanists go, well, it worked for us. We're brought up with the Luwian background because here's another secret. The Montanists, we take a look at their names, we know their names. A lot of them have Luwian names. They are Luwians. Cultures die hard. They're Luwians, they're Lydians, they're Phrygians, they're Carians. Is this fascinating? So, yeah, so they're going, hey, we understand religion this way. Here comes Christianity. We'll just keep doing what we did. And by the way, the Montanists, the majority of those who are officiators were women who did the private practices, which again, it connects to, if you hadn't noticed, I actually had a list of names of females, women, who were the ones who wrote these magic works. I love this. I love the fact that these women put together these groups of spells and they put their name behind it. They put their name on it. But a lot of them said, yeah, we got this from the old woman. So she was like this amazing authority that lived in Arzawa. And she was like the one that just inspired all of them to write theirs and said, I took this from her. Yeah, but then again, yeah. I'm not sure which did I cover what you guys wanted? Is this good? Yeah. Was this fun? Right. Oh, we got a big question. Definitely fascinating, though. From a worldwide view, are those rituals appearing everywhere closer to each society, making wheels and bread rather than any direct spreading for specific physical or spiritual point? It's a good way of communing with strong old powers to invite them in being discovered by multiple people at once, or do they all originate from specific regions with a connection to threshold magic? Okay, so the answer is you do have three ways of looking at things. The first way of looking at things is that they're connected, and the reason why they're connected historically is through, oral tradition. So these traditions spread orally from one to the other, and they spread geographically as people migrate. The number two reason is common phenomenology, psychology that, hey, you know what? You have people here, in the indigenous peoples of the Americas have some of the exact same stories that they have, in Europe and other places, but that doesn't mean that they're connected. When they see the world's going to end, they go, oh, it's going to be a fire. Maybe it's going to be a flood, right? Well, there's not that many choices to use, right? It's like a fire, a flood. I guess could be traveled by a giant, So, I mean, right? Same thing for a wheel, so I'm really going here. So I'm on a roll. So the point of the matter is, what? What? You ask me a question, I will answer. Okay. So the point is that is that the wheel will be developed in different places, you know, out of necessity. Nobody said, hey, you know what? I'm the inventor of the roof. Whoa, wow, it's a roof. Whoa, you know, but at the same time, we can trace like the timpani, right? The frame drum. We can trace certain specific elements. And so you take a look, and so yes, threshold magic, it's all over the world. But there's nuances of the threshold magic that's Luwian that we see that's very directly connected to with the same rituals, the same kinds of offerings being given, same attribution to certain deities. Does that make sense? It piles up that is still specifically towards this particular kind of custom from this particular place. Does that make sense? So it's so specific that it does come from this. And this threshold magic that we see with the Luwians are definitely connected to the Lydian threshold magic, the Carian threshold magic, Pamphylian threshold magic, the Phrygian threshold magic, and this goes right into the Ephesian, like the magic that's done at Ephesus. And so it's different. There's sure you have threshold magic everywhere. People are drawing invisible doors and windows everywhere. But the idea of being this specific in the way it is and how they're carved and the iconography and the way the various inscriptions are around it and all the meanings behind it are strictly Luwian, and you can trace that in phenomenology to going east and west. Does that make sense? So yes, you have commonalities. Oh, by the way, I mentioned 3 areas. So one is oral tradition. Number 2, of course, as I said before, is common phenomenology. We're all psychologically the same. Third one, of course, is one we don't talk about, the mystical. The idea that, there's a spiritual connection, all is one, and, we're reflecting I guess we can talk about it here. I can't do that in my classes, that there's like some kind of, spiritual connection between all things. Does that make sense? So these are the possibilities. And altars, everybody, having household altars. There's so many from the, Shintoism household altars, and Catholics have household altars, and hoodoo, and everybody has household altars, right? Pagans have household altars, right? But in other cases, you have this. Okay, the gate ritual I just talked about? That is pretty unique, where you have this gate and you have a bag and you have a peg and you go, I'm going to put all this stuff in this bag and I'm nailing it on this side and I'm dedicated to this God. And I'm going to go to the opposite side of the gate and I'm nailing this one here, right? You see how that works? And now we're going inside. Here's a table. Here's all these rituals. And because not every culture has a house that has a courtyard, and it's part of it, right? And the association has to have a courtyard, and then the various all the ingredients that are involved, right down to the 9 kids that are right. It gets to the point where we're going, okay, this is unique. Sure, the ideas are across different cultures, but how they express it in their mythology as well as the rituals and how they hold them together, it's still strictly unique. Dorian says, I understand what you mean. It's like how everywhere has flatbread, but the styles and methods of creating it are identifiable to the region. Yeah. And of course, you always have variants of degrees. Yes. Dorian says, did they pass through the gate to go? Do they pass through the gate or go around the gate when placing offerings? I'm mostly asking based on how you are pantomiming the ritual. Okay, this is what I didn't have a chance because I was in a hurry. So they go through the gate, and the last person actually destroys it, the temporary ones. And there's two illustrations of that, right? There's one that was in the household that you saw, and then they go out to a field out in the middle of nowhere, and they do another one. And so what they're doing is they're taking the feminine and moving it from the town into the country, into the wilds. Does that make sense? It makes a lot of sense, if you understand. So, and of course, Kibley's connected to the wildness of nature and so forth. So you have this idea. And then, of course, obviously, we're bringing the masculine in to the town, in this ritual. But it can also work vice versa too. I mean, it's not situated completely like that. But I'm just saying that yes, you go through the gates, but you can't go through the one that's carved in stone, right? You can't go through it. Didn't have time to tell you this, but you can eventually. When you die, you go through that gate. So it's a portal to the other side. Got it? So they saw this gate as, hey, you know what? When you die, you go to the realm of the sun goddess. She's the one there. And you've gone to the other side, and then you will cross right through over. So, but that happens. So you'll see that connected with tombs. And so you'll see carvings of this on tombs. Yeah. It's fascinating, right? So you will be able to go through someday.
The threshold stuff just strikes me as having so much to do with all of the iconography that gets attached to Hecate later. Like
it has everything to do with it. And in fact, I know everybody, connects Hecate with the region of, northern Greece and so forth. But he listened to my Hecate talk, and I'd go a length on that one. Really, Hecate is Anatolian. Its heart is Anatolian in so many different ways. Yeah, and that's why Artemis is connected to Hecate, an easy connection. But it's Artemis that is the Anatolian Artemis. So,
and her epitaph, she's the one who holds the keys. She's the one who presides over funerary spirits. She's the one standing at the place where three roads meet. Anodia, the way, the path, the road.
Yep. Yeah, this is very Luwian. Yeah. And even the word Hecate has that same Luwian.
Hefet?
Yeah.
Was that a goddess? Hefet? How was that?
Hepet. Yeah. Hepet. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That kind of reminded me a bit of something that could possibly be etymologically linked to Hecate. Yeah. I know people have also made the link with Hecate in Egypt. So Hecate, Hepet, Hecate.
Yep. Yeah, you have also the in linear B as well as linear, but linear B have the idea of the consonant vowel in their alphabet. And so Hecate is also very much an ancient derivation too. So yeah, so but doesn't again, yes, are there connections to northern Greece? Yeah, there is, but it's really a blender. But when it comes to the threshold magic, this is Luwian, very Luwian. But who's also into these ideas of portals and gateways? Egyptians do go there a little bit. The Egyptians, absolutely. But here we go, not in a different way than the Luwians. That's what I think is cool. So that would be another great book. Doing threshold magic or threshold religion throughout the world, because there are differences in how they perceive things, how they connect ideas together. Okay, Dorian says there are also stories of Celtic druids and Native American shamans knowing how to enter carved gates. So death may not be required for every version of it. And so in many cases, you draw this portal, you draw this opening. Absolutely, yeah. And see, what I absolutely love it, is how these ideas combine together. So the genius is how things are bundled together. There's no new thought anywhere, right? But it's how they're packaged that makes them unique. The layers that are added onto it make it unique. And of course, those are the layers of cult and culture, of tradition, of myth. All this is layered up, stacked high, yeah. And I love to, as an archaeologist, I love to excavate the various layers and to reveal the um, deeper stratums. And that's what I did for tonight. We went down, we went into the earlier levels. You're going, oh wait, this idea comes from Mesopotamia, and then it crosses over to Anatolia, and then it goes over to the Greeks. I wish I had more time, but it looks like the Greeks are pretty cool, but a lot of these ideas are Anatolia. So many of these ideas are Anatolia. Now the Greeks are Indo-European. The Luwians are Indo-European. So there is that connection. So you're going to see commonalities there. I agree, but the problem is that the Luwians as well as the Hittites take on ideas that are from the East that the Greeks don't take on, and they blend those ideas in there. So we have these words that don't have a Greek etymology. Artemis is one.
Like
Everybody, yeah.
Aliyah, meaning to ascend. That's straight from Hebrew. Is Aliyah means to ascend in Hebrew. That's
And
definitely
Ali,
Semitic origins.
yeah,
There.
we came across Ali, right? Yeah, amongst which would refer to under Luwians, which of course also could mean the highest. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. So you have these derivations because Anatolia is like a mixing bowl, all these different ideas being turned up. But the Luwians are the missing component. It's the missing ingredient because
In Hebrew it's Aliyah. In Aramaic it's Ali. It's the exact same thing, to
exact same
ascend,
word.
to be higher.
Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah,
makes sense with Aramaic being slightly more northern of a dialect.
absolutely. Yeah, and Syriac as well. Yeah, right. So, is this good? Did you guys enjoy yourselves? Was this fun?
I love the big fascination with horses there.
Oh yeah.
And then when you got to the gender stuff,
Yep.
something that really struck me there is I forget whether it was Virgil or Ovid. One of them specifically mentions not to drink female horse urine.
Okay.
Seems really weird and out of place, and I think he associates it with Thrace or the somewhere over in that region. He's like, yeah, they do that over there, don't do that. And so today in a lot of medicine and replacements for estrogen is derived from female horse urine. I believe like it's even called like promarin because it's derived from mare urine.
Wow.
And so the fact that that is specifically referenced by the Romans, who are very pro like machismo, masculinity thing. Oh, don't do that thing that they do over in the East of drinking mare urine.
Actually, pregnant mare urine.
Yes, specifically.
Well, you should, never mind. That was a sad joke, but get ports in the mouth. But I'm just gonna let that one go. So, I did find. I don't have it right here, but I did find the person. I have the name here. Jared Miller for the remedy for impotence or antidote for homosexuality. So it says it's going into the question. So Jared Miller, I'm not sure if that helps you. So also you have this also in, I don't have the full notes here. You also have this in Hoffner as well. And I'm going to go ahead and give you an inscription. You ready for the inscription? It's CTH 393. So CTH 393. Okay. And then let's see if another one here. Oh, and here's another one. CTH 406. Hey, there you go. So now you have the two inscriptions, and you got an author, and you can start looking it up. How's that? Cool. So, yay. Any other questions? So this was a fun talk, was it not?
Wow, yes.
So I guess hopefully this enough people get to see this, so we can get. So this will no longer be the moon mystery of the secret ones who get into mischief. That would be kind of fun, just to investigate that. That part of Luwian religion. That would be a good one. I mean, a secret order of individuals connected with the moon, who's both masculine and feminine. That you can do whatever you want. Just you get away with it. I don't know. Looks like another. Anyway, there's so much work that could be done in this. Dorian says, I may have misunderstood, but was the male virility ritual intended to also make the homosexual straight? And that is the topic of debate in this article. That's exactly what they're arguing. Is this patriarchy? Making, is this, ascribing a certain way? But we also know, and this author leaves out the fact that we do know that the Luwians go the other direction too. And this, of course, comes about in the Qibli worship. So it goes both ways, because that's the way the Luwians are. But yeah. Whereas the citation of the cure for homosexuality in reference to something else? No, it was in reference to that. It's a debate on what is homosexuality within the context of the ancient world, and according to the Luwians. What was their perspective? And can we impose that modern viewpoint and perspective upon the ancients, or is that creating an agenda that should not be there? I think it's creating an agenda that shouldn't be there. Does that make sense? You're reading into things, and people got to be careful. Not you, but the modern paradigm. We want to do this revisionist history where we want to go into the past and make everybody think the way we do about these topics. And there's a lot of fluidity when it comes to gender perspectives in the ancient world. There's no question about it. But anyway. All right. If there's no more questions, I will. What will we do next time?
French Revolution.
Whoa. Okay. All right. So we're doing the French Revolution. That's like, wow. Talk about it. Okay. So
That's
this
like
is
a
a very different
switcheroo.
topic.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. No wonder I spent so long getting this PhD. Trying to be able to teach these areas. It's like, there we are. But yeah, I'll close with this. My very first class I ever taught at the university was a class in the French Revolution. So I want to tell you that. Yeah, it was I didn't choose it, but it was 2005, and it was Cal State Dominguez Hills. He says, "Hey, we have a class for you." I'm like, "Great! I want it. Let me at it. What class is this?" "Oh, it's on the French Revolution." I'm like, "Really?" I said, "That's not my focus area." And Jim Jeffers says, he's the department chair. He's all, "It is now." It's like, oh. So I took, yes, I am degreed in history and world civilization A and B too. So yes, I'm degreed in the area, but but teaching an entire course, that's a whole other thing, because you really have to make this go for an entire semester. And then what I did is took all the information and stuffed it into this talk. So that's what you'll get next time. So it should be fun. Until next time, you're afraid I'm gonna do headless puns. You're gonna
Probably.
head me off at the pass, right? Well, don't worry, I'm gonna head out before that happens, right? I keep my head above water, right? That's right. After all, I am a scholar. Anyway, so oh, no. Ichabod crane in your neck. Yes, something like Ichabod is bad.
Oof. Okay, you guys know I've got the end button here. I can press it at any time.
I'm leaving. Bye. Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.